G'day and welcome to Surfing Live TV, brought to you by our partners at Gotcha. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this Yugambeh speaking country and pay our respect to elders past, present and emerging. I'm Ray from Surfing Live, and our special guest this episode is none other than 1977 World Champion Shaun Tomson and 1978 World Champion Wayne Rabbit Bartholomew. That was close by, wasn't it? 77, 78 boys. Welcome, thanks for coming in. Appreciate your time.
That's great to be here.
So let's talk about that. You guys come up with the tour, pretty much, yeah. Right?
A couple of other guys involved.
Couple other guys. Yeah, I know. It was a joint affair, but like really spearheading stuff. In my opinion, I'm allowed to have that. I look and I go, you two guys.
No, it's not.
Sorry,
your
guys,
opinion,
don't get
that's
offended.
Fact.
Hey,
That's fact. It's not your opinion. It's fact.
there you go. You two guys. Bugs, how did he get you on the first one?
Oh, well, I got...
Well, it was the second one, really, wasn't it? Because PT got first.
Yeah, well, it was the first touring year.
Right, yeah.
77. Started with the Stubbies Classic here at Burleigh, which was a famous event, an iconic event.
100%.
And the top four guys in that event were Michael Peterson, Mark Ridges, Shaun Tomson and me, and I figure that was pretty much right. You know, I figure we were pretty much the four best surfers in the world.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
And Shaun and I got equal third in that one, and then we went on to this ding-dong battle throughout the year.
The whole way?
Yeah, all the way. And it came down to the last day at the World Cup at Haleiwa.
Wow.
And
The
again,
last semi-final.
We were both in the top four. And I was in a semi-final with his cousin, the great late Michael Tomson.
Of course.
Michael just pipped me, and then Shaun. Shaun only had to make the final. He
Right.
didn't have to win the event.
But I was up against Simon.
He had a bit of a grab. He had a bit of a thing on me. So I had to beat Michael, and Simon had to beat him for that to happen. But he kind of had destiny in his own palm of his hand because, you know, he had to just make that final, beat Simon, who's world champion.
Yeah.
But it ended up being him and his cousin Michael in the final. It was amazing.
Great final.
Yeah.
And then with a world title as well. I mean,
Yeah. No, it was
storybook.
It was a wonderful day. And also...
The WSL have trying to rewrite that kind of storybook ending for years, by the way, and they've kind of almost got it.
Yeah, they've sort of... I mean, they had it 3 years ago, and they had the perfect formula, and now they've diverged from the formula. Two finalists at Pipeline, world title decided in 8 to 10 foot perfection surf.
Oof.
But no, let's reinvent a holy grail and have it at Trestles.
The whole, it's gone somewhere else, like they had done in the past. When wasn't it finishing in Manly? Yeah. And then they finally got back to finishing at Pipe again. I was like, yes, let's finish at Pipe. Pipe is the holy grail. All right, we've got some amazing waves in Australia, South Africa, J Bay, Snapper, Kira, Bells. There's amazing waves, but Pipe is Pipe. I wouldn't even like it to be finished at Chopu.
No, I think Pipe has the heritage, the history,
and the wave,
the culture, and the wave. I mean, certainly Chopu is a very demanding technical wave, but Pipeline is right there on the beach. Chopu breaks 15 miles out.
Of course.
The only way you can go out to sea, you've got to be in a boat right there. So Pipeline has the advantage of having like a spectator group, and there's nothing like being in the water and hearing the screams from the beach in terms of being able to motivate the competitors, but also it just creates more of a gladiator atmosphere.
Absolutely.
But it's interesting you mentioned Manly. Last night, Rabbit and I were up at this event, and Gary Elkerton was there. And, Gary Elkerton's most probably the best surfer in the world, never to win a world title, even though he's won a number of Masters championships.
Sure.
And he said to me, I was at Manly with Dummer, and Dummer beat me, and I lost the world title. And then he had the same thing at Pipeline when he lost the world title. And Pipeline just has that, it has that drama. It has that risk-reward ratio. It has the consequence.
I think it's amazing. But for you to finish when you did, to win it, finals with you, with Michael, that's an incredible finish.
But the other thing, Ray, though, is that leading up to that, I mean, for us it was, we kind of had to get it going because we wanted it to happen in our time, not Kelly Slater's time.
Sure.
We didn't want to just build something for others. we were selfish enough to want it for us. And we wanted to live the dream.
Yeah.
We wanted to live the dream of being a pro surfer, travelling around the world, being paid to surf. That's what we wanted.
Absolutely. Now, no offence to the current generation.
And we made it happen.
And you made it happen. That's exactly right. So I was going to say, no offence to the current generation, because this is what we do. As fathers, whether we're fathers of the sport or just fathers, we make something better for our children, okay? And we do that because that's what we do. And then they make something better for their children, okay? And that's how and you guys have handed it on as the forefathers of professional surfing, of the world tour, have handed on to that. And that's how you would like to leave it, right?
Without a doubt, yeah. No, I
Exactly.
think both of us are very proud of what we created, along with MR and Mike Thompson, Ian, PT, and some of the Hawaiians, and then certainly the administrators too, Fred and Randy and Graham Cassidy, Peter Benes. So there was like a collective of maybe 10 people that really created it. But I mean, I'm very proud of it, and I still feel, even though Rabbit's career and my career are far removed from when we competed, in some ways we still feel protective about it, about what we created, and if anyone puts shit on it,
exactly.
I will bloody stand up and I will hammer away at that particular person. I mean, certainly there needs to be honest dialogue about what's happening, and if something is, I believe is made a wrong decision, I'm not going to just shut up and keep quiet about it. But still, there can be like totally.
But that all you're talking about there is a bad haircut. We're not talking about the whole body being, the body of the sport is incredible.
No, the body of the sport is in amazing hands. I think we've got incredible surfers. The level of progression is amazing. What the guys are doing at Chopu, what the guys are doing at Pop, what Gabriel and Philippe and Italo, and then you've got a couple of the Aussies coming up. Jack Robinson, of course, is blasting, and then Ethan Ewing is one event is having a go and trying to find his footing. I think he's got some potential. So the sport's in good hands. It's nice to see Aussies coming back a bit.
Yes. So what about the South Africans? Matt did well this year.
Matthew McGilvray did well. I mean, he had that career-defining wave at Chopu, that 10, which was amazing to see. And certainly one wave can, I think, impact a young surfer's future career trajectory. Gives him a lot of confidence. Like, man, I got the 10 and such a gnarly wave. And it was such a technical, complicated wave. And, he came through. And then Geordie's just surfing still amazingly well. 100%. I mean, he's certainly, whenever I see him before an event, I think, man, he's one of the top 4 contenders. And I just saw some movies of him surfing recently, man. It's just fast, electric, powerful.
He's ripping.
Speed, power, flow, rhythm, aggression, and innovation, and just imagination, just surfing so amazing. So, I mean, I've been saying it's a matter of time for the last 12 years. But maybe next year's the year he gets it together. I mean, Kelly Slater at 50, winning Pops. The level and the career's been extended since we were on it. I mean, at 30 you were old.
Oh, 25 they were looking for your head, weren't they?
Well, I think that's a really interesting point, because I mean, when I was a kid, Nat Young and Midget Farrelly won their world titles as teenagers.
Yeah.
Surfing was like swimming. At swimming, you're getting old at 22.
It's wild, isn't it?
I remember when Midget, and it came down to bells in 1974, and I was like, it was only like 25, 26, but it just seemed like they'd accepted the fact that, the sport had moved on. And it's always been a mindset. So Shaun is absolutely right. What happened was that when Shaun and I were both 30 years of age, we got number 2 in the world. And we both lost to Tommy Carroll. He ran us down in the last furlong. But I remember the mindset was, I remember one of the sitting judges, just before, this is when the tour finished in Australia, and it was the Stubbies Classic. I went into it number 1 in the world, and one of the sitting judges on the panel said, he came out in the media and said, the worst thing that could ever happen in professional surfing is that a 30-year-old rabbit wins a world title.
And the bias is going to be there.
And then I ended up losing a 3-2 decision with him on the panel. But anyway, and then Shaun did exactly the same thing the next year. Gave Tommy Carroll a great run for his money and got number 2. And 30 was like it, right?
Yeah.
And I made a point that I said, when I take over, when I run this sport, that's gone.
And
That
is the best-
mindset is going to go.
Well, how about now? We're going, the best thing that could happen to professional surfing is if a 50-year-old could win it.
That's unreal.
Yeah. No,
I think that's the mindset.
I think the mindset.
A classic. It's an open-ended mindset.
Has absolutely changed. And Rabbit, it's funny. I didn't know that story
Yeah.
about you and the judge, because a few years later, when I was on the tour in France, and I had a really close decision against Sonny Garcia. I remember I smoked him, but it was a 3-2 decision going the wrong way, well, the wrong way in my opinion.
Yeah, of course.
And I remember going up to the head judge, to Mike Martin. Do you know Mike Martin?
Mike Martin, yeah.
And I said to him, hey Mike, I've had a number of these 3-2 decisions, and they've been going against me, and it's just been unfair. I seldom complain, but I had to go and he said, hey Shaun, you've got to realise, you've got to give the other young guys a chance now. And I'm going, you've got to give the other young guys a chance now. I'm going, yeah, that's not, sport doesn't work that way.
No.
Well, it's not supposed to work that way. And that's a bit of a
so
beef.
classic.
I hadn't thought of it until
You said it.
And it's exactly the truth, though.
That was the mindset. So the mindset has changed.
Big time change, and that allowed. Oki to come back into his 30s and actually win a world title.
Yeah.
Sonny went on to the late 30s, and of course Kelly came back, and
Yeah.
Kelly's his own man. He makes his own dream and makes his own reality.
Yes.
But it's still the mindset. I just helped disperse it.
Yes,
and make
absolutely.
it open-ended and
that's
what
so good.
sport should be. I believe in nutrition. I believe that you've got to surf your way and earn your way into anything.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, if there was a restructure of wildcards, I'd rather see them have to qualify against others on the day.
I think that's a great. The trials are expensive to run. We know that. We know that the trials. Well, I believe trials have been axed. The fact that it just costs too much. You've got to have judges on site for another 4 weeks. You've got to have trials into an event. I'm 100% for. And that's Martin Potter. He didn't get a wild card. He got trial. He won through the trials, didn't he, to get in? Because that's
what used to happen.
That's how it used to run. So he got there on his own merits,
and that's the attrition.
Not because he was sponsored by one of the big brands that has the money to sponsor an event.
Yeah, but even to get into the trials, I think there needs to be this aspect of a wild card, something new and uncertain.
Oh, see, then I'm good.
No, you get into the trials as a wild card.
Yeah.
Then I'm good.
But I'm talking about a limited trials too.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like an 8-man trials.
There you go.
For 1 or 2 spots.
Yeah.
That's to me fair.
Yeah. So you take the top 4, say for instance,
and then you sponsored wild cards.
And sponsors get their people in that they like.
I think that's cool.
There's something in that.
There's something in that.
We also both Rabbit and I believe in attrition. This whole crap about 3-man heats, and then first advances, second and third, and was it first and second? It's just absolute crap. It's like, if you're good enough to be a professional athlete, from the beginning, it's a 50% attrition rate. It's simple, it's more understandable, and also there's way more pressure. And it's
now I'm smiling because I love the
it's so damn confusing that I mean, it's like, you're watching a sport and there's 2 people on the tennis court and then there's 3 people on the tennis court. It's so counterproductive to creating a simple standardized system, and within that simple standardized system is explosive radical surfing. I mean, I hate anything more than a 2-man heat. We developed it in 1977. We came up with an unbelievable package created by Aussie Peter Drone, and now they just throw that out the window.
Well, the thing is that Shaun and I never had a losers round in our entire careers.
Yeah, right.
And the thing is, we only discussed...
What about repper charges?
No.
Never? No, not in ECT?
No.
Right.
It was cut and dried. I mean, when we were driving down here today, I said, remember the times when the number one seed of the tournament was in the first heat of the day, on the first round, at 7:30 in the morning, and if there was ever going to be an ambush with no one around watching, it was the wild card against the number one seed, and that's the system we surfed, and you had to win or you're gone home on the next plane.
That's wild.
And you would come up, you would always come up against the local wonder.
Yeah, the local
Yeah,
wonder
but-
child.
Pat
Yeah.
Mulhen,
Yeah.
and Johnny Futch in Florida when the surf was 2 feet. These guys
Yeah,
could do
yeah.
roundhouse cutbacks. I mean, they were so fast. And
Or in that case, Martin Potter. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, guys that were just the hottest young guys in,
Yeah.
in that country, and you're up against him.
First
Him
round.
and I often
First
were.
First
And, you
year.
know, you had to beat those guys straight up, or else you were out. And if you were out, you were not in the world title race.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so that's our entire careers.
Question. Obviously, that's my job. But would you prefer to have won your world title in 77, 78 or today?
You know, I mean, I couldn't answer a hypothetical like that. I mean, I loved winning my world title when I did, and I love watching guys win their world titles today. You know, the world changes, you change with the world, and I couldn't really answer it. Certainly today there's a lot more money, but there is...
Wealth is poorly measured these days, by the
Yeah,
way.
but I think there's no difference between the level of commitment
Oh, God, no.
that both of us had to put in order to win it. And yes, it's relative. The level of surfing today is much better, much higher, much faster, much more radical. But certainly within the context of the relative peer group that we were in, man, these guys were unbelievable at the time, for the time.
Gee whiz, you put these guys on your boards. I don't think the surfing's that much higher, relatively speaking. What you guys came out of, and you hadn't been on a high performance thruster from age 6 to whatever, you were through surfboard evolution. So your boards were evolving. So you didn't have a decade of surfing this high quality surfboard. And then you go, okay, I'm evolving with the sport, with the board, with the craft. And then I take that to pipeline and I learn a new method of surfing the barrel at pipeline no one had ever done. Like, you guys are teaching yourself on the fly with radically changing equipment. The level that you guys surfed at, in my opinion, is the same level now, relatively speaking to the equipment that you're using, the environment you're in.
You know, Ray, I mean, the first
Hats
board
off to you both.
the first board I used, we lived on the beach at Runner Bay. I used to have to drag it across the road, like drag it across the road. It left a mark in the road, you know. And then we repaired it with mosquito wire and industrial resin. But
My point is quite valid then.
well, and even when the shortboard revolution, PT and I used to say this, and watching that footage of you last night hanging 5. When the first shortboards came out, they were just rotten shortboards. Like the rockers were wrong, the rails were wrong, and PT and I both came to the conclusion that the only good thing about a 5.8 was that you get to the nose quicker.
Yeah,
Or
you didn't have to
carry
walk.
it. Or you could carry it. Yeah.
Oh, you can carry it. You didn't have wheels.
And you can carry it, right? But to shorten your last point, this is what I believe, that in every generation, in every single generation so far, in my opinion, you're only surfing against 5 other guys if you're a world title contender.
Couldn't agree more.
You're only surfing against 4 or 5 other guys ever for an entire 10-year period.
Yeah,
Couldn't
that's
agree
it.
more.
It's just how it is, and you can pick the guys from our generation to the next with
Yeah.
Tommy Curran and
Yeah.
Carroll and
Oki,
Oki and
yeah.
on to the
Kelly.
next.
Except Kelly. Kelly's moved.
Oh yeah,
He's moved with
there'll
the-
always,
He
no, there's
moved
always
through
an
several.
asterisk, except for Kelly.
Yeah, but it is. It's 5 guys. I mean, you had
Ah.
Andy, Kelly, Parker,
Yeah.
Taj, and Mick. You had those 5 guys absolutely.
And that's who's going for the world
Our
title.
era, we had the dominance, and then you had.
And
the,
then you got John
he had-
Idlo, Medina,
Yeah.
you know, and
Kelly.
and it's just classic. Yeah,
Same
Kelly
with
moves
Sonny
through
Garcia,
the generations.
Sonny Garcia, Martin
Yeah.
Potter, all those guys
No,
had to deal
absolutely.
with.
Yeah, there's
Kelly.
always that.
Oh yeah.
Sort of there's that tight radical group that are just up against one another, and that's what sort of elevates surfing. But I'll tell you what I think has been pretty interesting over the last period since pro surfing started in 1976 is. So there was a massive design evolution. So we were all riding single fin pintails or
Yeah.
single fin squashes.
Absolutely.
And then MR came out with the twin based on the Reno Abelera design, which was based on the Steve List design. But MR really came out with a high performance twin. in 77 at the end of the winter in 77. So that was a massive change, and Bugs got on twin fins pretty quick. I was a little bit slow, got my ass caned for a
That was a bit of a holdout. No, I'd say Michael Ho, you, me, and Shane and Ian were the holdouts. I didn't get on one till 81.
Yeah, but we Emma gave us a good caning there.
He proper tailed you up, that's for sure.
Sure did.
So we had that big change in the end of 77. By 78, 79, the whole twin fin thing happened, and then Simon came out with a thruster in 1981. I remember seeing him at Bell's walk down the beach with that thruster on his arm, and I said to Simon, Simon, what's that? And he said, this is a 3-fin thruster, mate, and in 3 weeks you're going to be riding one. And I'm thinking, yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
And then, he goes out there and wins Bells, and then I end up in a final at Surfabout 2 weeks later. And Simon's in the final, and I'm in the final with him, and I'm on a twin, and he smokes me. And on the Monday morning, I phoned him up, and I said, hey, Simon, you said in 3 weeks I'll be riding one. I said, I'm putting in my order.
Yeah.
So... but the type of guy that Simon was, he wanted that design spread around the world, and he was willing to have it popularized rather than
make money,
rather than keep it to himself. And it was. I remember MR when MR came over with his twin fin, and we had a whole series of events in '78 in Japan, '78 or '79. And he used to keep his board in a bag. He used to call it my pal. He had my pal stencil, and he wouldn't let anyone look at it, because that was his technological advantage. So there's a difference between the two of them. Emma was, Emma a nice guy, Mr. Humble, but Emma was a gnarly, ruthless competitor, and he'll admit it. Absolutely admit it. When we made the movie Free Ride, and he says, I just wanted to beat Rabbit and Shaun. And, he's super a great guy and friendly, but he was a gnarly dude. So there was the two contrasts in the approaches. But what I'm trying to get at is that the last significant design evolution happened in 1981. After that, it's been a period of refinement. Single to double concaves, fin boxes, shaping machines. But it's just been, there hasn't been that dramatic revolution. It's just been refinement. So I think surfing is ready for another impactful radical revolution.
Well, the fins became the next frontier. I mean, fin designs, and everyone's have their own specific fins, and.
But in reality, since Greenow shaped the fin that we're all surfing now, and we have Shane's opinion on fins and whatever. But
what do you mean Greenow shaped the fin we're all surfing?
The curved looks like a dolphin fin. So George Greenow in his kneeboard, and the basis of that fin, we just made it smaller and had the shape. So it's no longer a skeg, it's not up and down. And that has basically just been refined and refined and refined. Again, what we're talking about, the refinement. And then, to be honest, Simon Anderson making the 3 fins the same shape was probably where we are now to refining. So it's the 3 fins the same size, as opposed to, we had Bonzes and stuff like that with smaller fins and outside
single
trailers.
fin with the little trailers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it wasn't about he put 3 fins in the board, he put 3 fins the same, basically the same size. Right. And from that 81...
But he fundamentally changed the outline of the board. I mean, he combined it, Jeff McCoy had come out with those needle nose boards. So he took the narrow nose, and then he used the same tail that he'd been using for many years, the squash tail. I mean, I'd ridden single fins that Simon had made me squash tails. So it was a fundamental change in outline. It wasn't just, putting 3 fins on the board. It was a fundamental outline change. And also the way he shaped the rail at the, at the tail, that blocky rail. I mean, it was a really, really different board, as opposed to just putting on 3 fins.
I guess what I was saying is, to Bugs' point.
Also, the 3 fins, you had the 3 fins, and you had the flat side
on the
internal. So that was also another fundamental revolution. I mean, I had never seen Had you ever seen a board with a inside fin flat?
No.
And fall out.
Yeah,
No.
so he...
Yeah, I guess what I was saying
was big, yeah.
no, that changed from, as you say, 81 when he made the thruster and put the 3 fins. Fins have also just been basically refined.
Yeah,
So
correct.
refined the shape of the
Absolutely.
board and refined the fins. We haven't seen major breakthroughs in shapes of the boards and that you go, wow, that's now completely different. You had Tomo try to cut the nose off the board, and they work really well. I love surfing those boards, but in competition, they don't look good. They don't drive. There's no beautiful lines when you see the nose of the board running through. You go, which looks stunning.
Yeah.
And you chop the nose off and you go,
Yeah, it needs fixing.
it looks funny now.
Yeah,
It doesn't have that visual appeal. And that is surfing. Surfing is both sport and art. We're the bizarrest sport in the world.
But I also think that the materials have not really progressed with the level of surfing. You know, they're still using a polyurethane core, polyester resins. So the whole flex characteristic aspect of surfing, I mean, it's just trial and error. You know what I mean? It's not like there's you're putting it in a wave tank and you know measuring the different flexes and why is this surfboard a magic surfboard, or why should we use this particular type of fin. It's just like still it's bush trial and error. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The science has never really. There hasn't been like a PhD student, engineering student, or a hydrodynamic student like really going, oh well, we know that we should use this type of area in the fin because I've created this model, and so it's still it's just like experimental. You go into the shaping bay, mow some foam, and just like Simon and MR did so many years ago. Yeah.
I mean, I think the Mini Simmons was the only board ever designed in that fashion, wasn't it? He was a naval engineer, or he worked with naval engineers to create that board because he worked on speed. And the problem is with the Mini Simmons is it just goes fast. It doesn't turn. And we're looking to actually... I remember Wilco with the board when he won Snapper and then he won Bells and he was leading the tour. The difference between the board, the red board, and the yellow board, the yellow one went too fast. The red one went slower, so it was a better board for him. And that's incredible, I think, because we always like, oh no, we need it faster. We actually don't. We need the board that goes with the tempo of the wave. So I think surfing is not about going fast. Surfing is about being able to accelerate.
Yeah, well, MR really put us into the age of acceleration.
Sure did.
I think I saw MR, the first wave he ever caught it off the wall, when he walked down the beach with that twin, that 6'4" twin. And I happened to be standing there, and I remember going, what's MR got under his arm? Let's see what he's all about. And I remember I saw him walk down, paddle out, and I saw that first bottom turn, and I saw that first off the top, and I went.
I'll tell you an MR story. You know, when he was about 10 or 11, they used to come up to Rainbow Bay with his parents, Ray and Val, and he had at the time, you know, he was a gawky kid, you know, and he had this knock-kneed style. He had this knock-kneed style, and he kind of just waved his arms. And then I'd see him come every year, you know, every holiday they'd come to Rainbow Bay and I'd watch him. I'd watch him surf because his parents were watching him surf. I was going, well, you know, wow, this is pretty amazing. And then a few years later, and this is the first go around with the twin fin.
I remember
on the
Dapper,
McCoy twin fins.
You remember Dapper and all those
Yeah,
guys?
Dapper. Well, I walked to the top of D-Bar Hill one day and I used to call him that kid. That was my name for him. I said, that kid's back. Right? I was onto him.
Yeah.
And I went to the top of D-Bay Hill one day and I looked down and there was a bank off the wall and I saw this guy do this roundhouse cutback and I went, it doesn't quite look like MP. I went, what's going on here? and I raced down the hill and I went out the wall and I went, that kid.
That kid.
And he was on the twin fin now.
Oh.
Yeah, this is when he would have been about 14.
Yeah, that first, I remember there was that square tail with those two fins sticking out like right on the corners. I had one in South Africa. It was on the cover of Surfing World magazine. There was like, I think Dapper, maybe Terry Fitz, it was like.
Yeah. Oh, and I remember when Dapper and the McCoy guys came to Kira one time, and it was hollow Kira, super hollow Kira, and they're on like 4.9 twin fins, and that was kind of hilarious. Like Mark Warren, Dapper, and all the McCoy guys, because Kira was so hollow that you couldn't come off the bottom.
No.
You couldn't go in the top of the wave.
No.
And they're going up the top and just getting obliterated. I mean, to his credit, Terry Fitzgerald, though, had worked out how to surf a twin fin Akira. Just stayed in the middle part, you know.
There you go.
And you know, he was Mr. Speed.
Yeah.
But they
Fine
weren't
lines.
really made for Kira, were they? You know, like,
you're sort of trying to hold him, but they're so squirrely.
you had to get on that bottom, you know, of the
Exactly.
base of the wave with the tube riding. Then it was a different.
Yeah, they came out right after. I remember they came out right after the world title at Johanna 1970.
Yep.
I remember Fitzy was in the final of
Yeah.
that, and I was driving back. So my cousin Michael and I were also competing in that event. Michael, I made the quarters, and Mike Thompson made the semis. I remember I needed one more wave in my quarterfinal. I was like 14, and Midget Faraday was my hero. You know, he was like, I just loved Midget and Nat and Wayne, and I remember I just needed one more wave, and I'm paddling for a wave, and Midget's on my outside, and my hero, and he looks over me, he goes, "It's okay, Shaun, I got this one."
I love it. It's like, did you do it sugar with your tea? Or,
I went, "Yes, hero."
I mean, that's royalty.
Yeah, that's right.
King Midget. Like, that's the best.
Okay, Shaun, I got this one. I just went, I just froze.
That is so good.
And I remember he got all the way to the final. He came second.
Yeah, he got second.
Rolf Van Ness, but Terry was in the final as well. And Terry was riding ultra short. Nat Young was riding ultra short.
No, ultra short. 5'8". Nat Young at 6 to 8 foot.
Yeah.
Joanna
was perfection. And
Druin was
Druin was riding ultra
Druin
short.
was riding the board. He shaped himself. It was
so tiny.
It was like a door. It had no, but he was so brilliant. He'd won the Australian title on a green mount, and he's still surfing at 6 to 8 foot Joanna.
They were ripping, and they were going.
That was kind of his. I thought he should have won that. You know.
They were going.
Rolf Van Ness had a 7 foot keel.
He had a 7. Well, it wasn't a keel, but it was a 7.0 down railer.
Yeah.
And then they all copied, and they all came to South Africa about a month later. I watched them all surf super tubes, and they were all riding keels then, down railer like Rolf's, but.
Well, give me your opinion. This is one thing I've always wanted to know, because to me it's a mythical story. Not mythical, but I mean, to me it was the biggest thing, and the biggest impression of me was hearing about Wayne Lynch surfing down the beach at Joanna.
Surfing incredibly.
Yeah, so you saw it.
We were all. I saw him. I got movies of it.
Yeah. Oh wow.
I took Super 8 movies of him just surfing incredibly. So he lost at Bells because at Bells the turns were too short radius. You know, Nat lost at Bells. And Nat didn't lose at Bells. Nat made it through to Joanna, but Wayne lost at Bells, just too short radius. And you know, he had probably the best backside bottom turn in the world, maybe of all time.
Yeah.
Beautiful. But he was too short radius. But at Johanna he's going front side now. It was all left-handers.
Yeah.
And the competition bank was rights. And that short radius board with a big fin just fitted perfectly, and it was incredible, like progressive surfing. But he never continued with it because Rolf Van Ness now won the world title on this huge carving surfing on this down railer, and Wayne surfing was certainly the equivalent, or maybe even better at the time.
But only recently did I find out after that he was on the run from getting conscripted to go to Vietnam.
Yes, that's right.
So, you know, he had to go underground.
Yeah.
But he made the biggest impression. I know Michael Peterson, myself at the Joe Larkin factory, it was Wayne Lynch.
It was fantastic.
It was all about Wayne Lynch. And I saw Wayne, one day I walked around Greenmount Point and I saw a guy just doing the most fluid figure 8 surfing you could ever imagine. And I went, it can only be Wayne Lynch.
Of course.
No, he was one of the, you know, when I think of the greatest of all time, specifically out of Australia, I mean, certainly Midget, Nat, Wayne is like
up there with
right there. Ted, Spencer,
Druin.
I mean, to me that
Ted Spencer.
Group,
I agree.
That group is unbelievable. I know Ted Spencer just disappeared, but I saw him surf in '75, and he at Burleigh blew my mind.
Yeah.
So and then you had the whole the next crew, you know, you and PTMR and that whole crew, but that first crew,
I agree,
was incredible. And then Fitzy was sort of in between, on sort of his own.
Yeah, he was. Yeah,
you know, he was sort of on his own there. But in that final at Johanna 1970, and I drove home after the final with Fitzy, and he's in the car. Yeah, man, the judges just didn't understand me. I was riding faster than anyone else in the whole world, Fitzy. And I'm there, this little boy listening. Oh, Cherry Fitzgerald, and he's got his hair. And, I'm riding faster than anyone else. And
I mean, the classic he had the blonde afro. But when and the side slipper. And doing the 360 rotations. And I remember the first footage I ever saw, I mean, I used to watch him in Green Man. It was the most spectacular thing with the wide afro doing 360 spinners, and it was so cool.
He was very
and the first
cool.
footage I saw at Bell's Beach was Ben Iper doing side slipper 360s in the bowl at Bell's.
Wow.
Yeah, that would have been 70.
1970, yeah.
Now, speaking of stuff I used to watch as a kid, well, we weren't, but you guys talking about what you're watching now, and I'm just thinking, I remember being riveted to this movie, and you both feature in this.
Yeah.
This was like one of the things. It's like, oh wow.
Was that like an 80s? I think it was an 80s movie.
Yeah. Basically, we've got
Chris
the poster there.
Chris
Bystrom, yeah.
Oh, Bystrom, yeah.
So
he's putting flames on the wood right in the beginning of the movie, and it's all
blazing boards.
Blazing
boards. Yeah. He's like at the beginning of the movie saying, you've all been ripped off. You've come to watch this great movie, because this was when it wasn't on DVD or VHS. You had to go to the cinemas. And he goes, you're sitting in the audience, you've paid your money, and all you're going to see is 2-foot onshore slop, and I've taken all your money. It was like one of the funny. But he had one of those funny minds, and he always made good skits. Now I think surf movies are too serious these days. What happened to the funny skit days? And that's what he did. But you guys were in this, and I just remember watching that going, oh, this is fantastic. So that's amazing. We also have, Bugs, can you reach over there and grab that board? Yeah.
My board?
Yeah, let's have a little quick chat about this one.
Yeah.
We're almost out of time, but I'd love to have a bit of a yarn about this.
Well,
so this is your new model.
Well, that's right, because
you've got your remake up here.
No, well, this is the 1978 model, and with the original, Gil Glover shaped it.
Yep.
Paul Hallis glassed it. It's the original band we got back together.
And I'm pretty stoked that we've got it on the set today, because there's only 5 of them left.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Limited edition.
That's right. Whereas this is my model that I've designed. It's a modern surfboard, and it's not some old guy's surfboard. It's anyone.
Well, I'm an old guy, and I'd like to surf it.
No, but it's not like
it's not like the single.
It's not like a thruster or a 610 single fin. I mean, this is a modern board, and I've designed it, and I'm really stoked to be launching it.
I'm stoked that you are launching and you're doing stuff like this, and Shaun,
the free ride model, Shaun.
The free ride model.
Now with that, I got in touch, and Victoria Delaney. She gave me the blessings to say, I actually asked permission. Could I please do the free ride model? She went with big hugs.
There you go.
Which is really lovely.
Yeah, I think that's great.
And Shaun, Surfing Life, we're into literature. We love it. Books. You've just written Surfer and the Sage. How's that going for you?
Yeah, so we released the book about a couple of months ago in the States.
We can't get it here. I'm trying to get it.
No, it's just
about to come out.
It's just come out. We had a couple of hundred last night at this event at Rabbit and our fundraiser up on the Sunshine Coast. So it's a very different book. It's a book about spirituality. It's actually called The Surfer and the Sage: A Guide to Survive and Ride Life's Waves. It was written during COVID, and I've been doing a lot of I do a lot of keynotes and speaking engagements to large corporations, schools, universities, prisons, rehab clinics, PTSD survivors. And I found that COVID impacted people very, very, very harshly and very negatively. And I would ask people, send me a word that describes how you're feeling. And they would text me a word, and I use this really cool tech, and comes up on the presentation. Everyone can see it. And the 4 words were stress, anxiety, depression, and disconnection. So it's a mindset issue, that COVID and what's happening really impacts us negatively. So the book was written as a way to perhaps change mindset, and as a guide to help you change your mindset from the darkness to the light. So it's 18 chapters. Every chapter is about a negative and a positive, with a negative first, despair and hope, powerlessness and empowered. It's really simple. 18 chapters, because 18 in Hebrew, it means life. Every word in Hebrew, every letter has a numeric associated. So we chose 18 because the guy I wrote it with No Ben Shir is a student of, he's a writer, he's a poet, a philosopher, a student of the Torah, a student of the Talmud. So we read it with 18 chapters, has this like spiritual base. And and I've been stoked, and we've had a lot of great reaction from it. Actually went to #1 on Amazon, which was pretty much of a stoker for us.
That's pretty cool.
Fantastic.
We went on a big show called the Today Show in the States.
That helps.
That revved it up. It was #1 for about a millisecond.
Well,
But I took a screenshot.
Oh no, I don't care how long
I took a
it got there.
screenshot of it. Yeah.
you always did love being #1.
Yeah, so did we both. So did we both.
Yeah, pot kettle black. Let's pop this down. This might not actually leave this studio, by the way.
No, cool, right?
I love the gloss coat.
Yeah.
The gloss is
Nice,
really good. So I'm going to try and get a copy of you and get it signed by you.
Yeah.
But for coming on the show, guys, we've got some little gifts for you.
Oh, really?
Lovely, yeah.
So let's start with Fuel TV subscription.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
cool.
nice.
There you go.
Wow.
Very good.
Here's a stubby cooler from Fantasy Surf Session. We've got our own Fantasy Surfer.
Yep.
It's the only fantasy surfer in the world you actually win prizes.
Yeah.
We just gave away for this year 7 nights in the Mental Eyes. How about
Wow,
that?
wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Where do you sign up for that?
Exactly. Here's a leggy.
Oh, now there you're talking.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right
Oh,
brand.
wow.
This is a South African brand.
Yeah.
you seen
No, I'm a
this?
soul man. I don't use leg ropes. No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
You mean you're dangerous?
Exactly.
Well, that's
I'm anti.
that's a
no
sturdy
leg rope.
looking leg rope.
Yeah,
It's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah.
they work really well.
That's
We
a
had it in
beefy
this
one.
year's board test. So.
Yeah, that's a sturdy looking leg rope.
Surfing Life Mag.
Oh, good.
Could have the latest copy.
Thank
Nice,
you.
nice.
Unreal, man.
Now,
Thank you very much. Yeah.
I've got this for you, Bugs. This is a
Oh.
tilt-up board rack like this one we've
Wow.
got here.
Yeah.
So you can chuck a board on display at home.
Very cool.
Oh, unreal.
Now I know you're travelling, so I've just got the smaller versions, which is
Oh,
like
great,
you can
thank you.
see over in
Oh, that's
here.
so cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ray.
A couple of
That's very nice of you,
Yes.
Ray. Thank you.
hang
That's
up
really
some
cool.
special boards.
Very cool.
Unreal, mate.
Guys, thanks for coming on
No,
the
thanks for
show.
having us.
Really appreciate it. It's always
Ray.
fun having a good yarn.
Yeah.
No, it's been unreal. Guys, thanks for watching and tune in again next time.